Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm going to be giving my spoiler free review of Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm just going to be giving my general thoughts, a little bit about the first, second, and third act, as well as my thoughts about the cameos and the film as a whole. The only thing I'm ever going to get in detail about are things shown in the trailers, just to avoid any spoilers and just for anyone who wants to go into that second weekend, really surprised. I really want them to have a good time. The first act was really fun but slow. It was sort of setting up Deadpool meeting the TVA, his family, and just home life, his motivation for going through this entire movie, meeting Cassandra Nova, meeting Wolverine, and all these different things. As he says, becoming Marvel Jesus. And I felt like they were trying to set up, an engaging motivation, and that I thought, it was lacking in some areas, but in my opinion, it was a really, really strong entry for the Deadpool franchise. And the motivations for Deadpool are a little bit stronger in this film than I think for, Russell, him trying to get back Vanessa and whatnot. I think this had a little bit more of an engaging, thought-provoking plot. And I also thought that the action scenes were extremely well set up. Really, I mean, Sean Levy, he did a really good job. Whoever he had for choreography, it was just overall a very, very action-packed and bloody movie. I also thought that, some of the cameos we got in the first half of the movie, or I guess the first act, were shown, and some of them were kind of just played off, for laughs. Some of them were played off, for a little bit more serious and kind of, showing the motivation of Deadpool. But they were really, really cool, and I think you'll especially like these cameos a little bit more than you did with like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Getting into the second act, I thought this is where things started to speed up. Deadpool and Wolverine are now hitting the roads in the void, meeting the mutants, Cassandra Nova, and it was just all very engaging and a very unique landscape. There are certain people in the film, though, that we call cameos, but honestly, while I was watching it, I thought they were more just like secondary characters to the film. They actually played a bigger role, had arcs, just throughout the movie, they had stuff going on as Deadpool and Wolverine kind of took the road trip. So it was a little bit less of, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where like, say Professor X or, John Krasinski's Mr. Fantastic just shows up and then they just all die from Wanda. I think a lot of them had a little bit more motivation throughout the film, especially Pyro, who I thought was just a very fun, very motivating character, and he had his own sort of plans going on throughout the film. Finally, the third act just went wild. There was just so much going on, everything kind of built up from the first and second act and just sort of just splurged all over this third act, especially with more cameo characters coming in, helping Deadpool and Wolverine fight Cassandra Nova, getting them back to their universe. There was just so much that happened in a short span of time, but honestly, it really worked for me. I don't want to talk much about this specific section because there are just too many spoilers. There's too many fan moments that people have been waiting for years to see. So all I want to say about the third act is that it is probably the best part of the film. And to be honest with you, it just was such a fun time. My thoughts on every cameo in the film. There were a lot that were just fun to see. There were some that, were just there played for laughs. Again, like I said in the first act, and a lot of them were actually very, very just like fan moments where if you're a fan of the comics, especially the comics, or if you're a fan of just like the movies, way back when X-Men was first starting, there are a lot of fun moments that you will actually see in this film. But I will say that, again, the cameos, especially like Pyro and some of the other ones that I'm kind of keeping disclosed, they were not treated like they were in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. If you think you're going to get those same vibes, I can promise you're not going to feel like that in the second and third act. They take things more seriously, and they have consequences to what these characters do, and they have backstories. They have things that have happened to them that just really, really pull in the audience. And I think that's just a lot more than what we got, a simple, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where they just sort of explain that they killed Doctor Strange because he did something bad with the Darkhold, and then Wanda comes and kills him because she just wants to, get her kids and whatnot. So I think there was just a little bit more engagement with those cameos, and so the cameos as well, they are inserted into the plot and they play a bigger role, and they're just not killed off, just like again fantastic, and they really do play an amazing part in this movie. Overall, this movie was fun. It had a lot of heart, and that's mainly due to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. This movie doesn't backtrack on the sacrifice to Logan, and it doesn't, you know, disrespect the character of Logan, especially when he died for X-23 in the end of that Fox era. Instead, it introduces a new Wolverine who just failed his team, and that was a little bit more intriguing to me, especially when you look at things like, I don't know, Old Man Logan when he killed his team, because of Mysterio and a bunch of other villains that sort of tricked him. That's not what I'm saying happened in this film at all, but it just was a little bit more intriguing to see a Wolverine who had failed to save his team. Like you mentioned in the trailer, Beast, Storm, Cyclops, they all begged him to wear that suit, and he kind of just went off on his own. And that's just something that Wolverine does, and that's who he is, and that's what you see a lot in like X-Men, X2, and then he sort of gets a little bit more involved in X3 in The Last Stand, but it's kind of taking more the approach of if Logan continued to just wander off like an X-Men and an X2. And Hugh Jackman, oh my goodness, he is giving his best performance in this movie. I mean, it does not top what he did in Logan and sort of the feelings and sort of the passion that he had in that, but he really puts the heart in the movie. And there's a scene in the second act where he just tells Deadpool off, and just kind of keeping spoiler free, but he just tells Deadpool off because Deadpool is such a funny character. And in one of the trailers, he says, "I know I make everything a joke, but I have motivations and I have a family and whatnot." But throughout this movie, Wolverine kind of doesn't see that, and so he just goes off on Deadpool in one scene, and it really makes some sort of like conflict between the two characters. And that was just very engaging to see Wolverine go off on him, especially since he's one that, again, failed his own team, but yet he still has heart. He still wants to care and to love. And so I just think those serious moments were just something I wasn't expecting from this movie. I had a feeling Marvel was just going to go the joke route and just kind of undermine everything, but they didn't. They really went serious in a lot of moments throughout the film. And getting to Deadpool, Wade Wilson, there are a lot of jokes made in this movie, poking fun at Marvel Studios, kind of the woke things that have been going on, Fox's Marvel era, and even things like budget. It had me laughing, but not everything landed. There were some moments where jokes were made that were absolutely just silent in my theater, and they paused for a little bit, and it honestly made it a little bit awkward. But overall, I would say at least half to three quarters of the jokes, make it through. And I will say that the breaking the fourth wall throughout this movie was actually probably one of my favorite parts. Deadpool just absolutely going at it. And there's even a part, I won't spoil it, but there's a part with one of the alternate Deadpools where he breaks the fourth wall, and it just absolutely had me in tears when I heard it. But of course, these are just my thoughts on the film. Keeping this as spoiler free for y'all. The movie is already at like 400 something million, which is already bigger than like the Marvel's box office entire run, which is really telling of how much people just wanted to see this, how much they were waiting for Hugh Jackman and Wolverine to come in. And overall, I think this movie is worth those expensive recliner chairs and giving the IMAX treatment. Honestly, the film was kind of a mess, and it kind of felt like Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, but honestly, the performance given were solid gold. That's all I have for you today. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a subscribe on YouTube or a follow on Rumble. Tell me your thoughts about this movie in the comments down below. What was your rating of the movie and why? And also don't forget to give me a like if you enjoyed this video. That's all for now. Take care.